In today's video, I'm going to show you 11 pricing mistakes that are probably costing you thousands of dollars right now on Airbnb. Now, check this out. I was recently talking with a host who had been making just one of these mistakes over the past 6 months, and after we fixed it, his monthly revenue jumped by over $1,000. And that was just from fixing one of these mistakes. If you're making several of these mistakes right now yourself, and trust me, almost every host is, then you could easily be leaving $12,000 or more on the table every single year. But here's the good news. Every single one of these mistakes can be fixed in the next 15 minutes. And in this video, I'm gonna walk you through exactly how to do it. Plus, if you stick around till the end and you aren't making a single one of these 11 mistakes, then I'll hook you up with a free month inside B&B Tribe. Hi, I'm James Fedek, co-author of Airbnb for Dummies and one of the world's leading short-term rental educators. Over my 8 years of hosting through every market cycle, I've personally managed dozens of listings while earning a full-time income myself and traveling the world full-time. I've been featured in some of the world's biggest publications and helped thousands of hosts to level up their hosting. Through B&B Mastery, I've helped over 800 hosts to optimize their business, plus helped over 700 people launch successful co-hosting careers. I'm here to help you with your short-term rental. Mistake number one, which is using basic minimum and maximum pricing. Here's what most hosts do. They set a minimum price and they don't go below that. They set a maximum price and they just won't go above it. And then they just let Airbnb smart pricing kind of do its thing. This is a huge mistake, and I'll tell you why. Let's say that you've got your maximum price set at $1,000. You're thinking no one would ever book my place for more than that. But here's the thing, that maximum price is almost always too low. During high demand periods, there's a really good chance you could easily be charging 2 or 3 times the amount that you think. Most hosts are shocked when they realize just how much they can actually earn. But because you've got this artificial ceiling in place with your maximum price, you're missing out on those high value bookings. And then let's say that you've got your minimum price set at $150. You're thinking, I've got my costs, I know my numbers, and I just can't go any lower than that. Well, there's a good chance that minimum price is actually too high for your low season. I know that sounds crazy, but stick with me here. Let's say that you've got a random Tuesday night coming up in your slowest month of the year. Nobody's booking at $150. So what happens? The night sits empty and you make $0. But what if you could get $150 or $100, $120? Well, sure, it's below your minimum, but $100 is a lot better than $0, right? Now, I can already hear some of you saying, but James, I don't want to take those low value bookings. And I get it. But here's the thing. When you use the right tools and strategies, you can actually set this up to happen automatically and prevent bad guests. Your prices will stay higher when demand is high and only drop when it makes sense to do so. I actually had a B&B Tribe member implement this exact strategy last month. His occupancy went up by 20% and his average nightly rate actually increased by $40. Why? Because he was filling up those random low season nights while also charging more during high demand times. So how do you fix this? Well, the first step is to remove those artificial limits and start using a dynamic pricing tool like Price Labs. This will automatically adjust your rates based on real market demand, not just random minimum and maximum amounts that you've set. If you want a step-by-step guide for setting this all up properly, we've got a detailed training inside B&B Tribe that'll walk you through the entire process. But for now, let's move on to mistake number 2, which is actually costing hosts even more money than mistake number 1. Now, the second mistake is mismatching your rates and your length of stay requirements. And this one drives me crazy because I see hosts doing it all the time. Here's what happens. A host notices their bookings are down, so they start lowering their nightly rate. But, and this is the crazy part, they keep their minimum stay requirement at 3 nights or 5 nights, or sometimes even 7 nights. This is literally the worst combination possible. You're targeting budget conscious guests, but then requiring them to commit for a longer, more expensive stay. Just doesn't make any sense. Think about it. If someone's main concern is price, they're probably looking for a shorter stay, maybe just 2 nights for a quick weekend getaway. But by requiring them to stay for longer, you're actually increasing their total cost. What's even worse is that your 5-night minimum is preventing you from even showing up in most searches. If you just lower your minimum stay requirement, your listing will appear in more searches and you'll almost certainly get booked at a higher nightly rate. Even better, you're now attracting the higher quality guests who's willing to pay more per night. These are the kinds of guests who are more likely to respect your property, follow your rules, and leave you a great review. I actually learned this one the hard way myself with one of my first properties. I kept dropping my rates while keeping a 3-night minimum stay. My bookings were down, my revenue was terrible, and the guests that I did get were constantly trying to negotiate even lower rates than I had. Then I tried something different. I raised my nightly rate by about 50%, but dropped my minimum stay down to 2 nights. You know what happened? My bookings actually increased. My revenue went up by over 20% in the first month, and the quality of my guests improved dramatically as well. The reason this works is simple. You're matching your pricing strategy with your target guests. If you want to attract quality guests who will respect your property, you need to price your listing accordingly. Now, there's a bit more to it than just changing these 2 settings. You need to know when to adjust your minimum stay and by how much. For example, during peak season, you might want to keep your minimum stay at 3 or 4 nights, but during shoulder and low season, you can drop it down to 2 nights while keeping your rates high. Which brings us perfectly to mistake number 3, poor length of stay pricing optimization. Now, this one's a bit more advanced, but it's also incredibly powerful when you get it right. Most hosts set up their length of stay discounts completely backwards. They offer the same weekly and monthly discounts year-round without considering seasonality or demand. And worse yet, they often discount way too much during periods when they could easily be getting full price. This is leaving a ton of money on the table. Let me show you what I mean. So let's say that you're offering a 20% discount for weekly stays. During low season, that might make perfect sense. But during peak season, you're literally just giving away money. Those 7-night stays would book at full price, but instead, you're cutting your revenue by 20% for no reason. Even worse, a lot of hosts are offering 30 or 40% discounts for monthly stays. Now, don't get me wrong, monthly discounts can be great, especially during the slow season. But during high season, that's thousands of dollars that you're giving away unnecessarily. I know this might sound obvious when I say it like that, but let me show you the math. Let's say that your nightly rate is $200 during peak season. A 30-day booking at full price would bring in $6,000. But with a 30% monthly discount, you're only getting $4,200. That's $1,800 that you're leaving on the table. And the crazy part is that booking probably would have come in at full price anyway. One of our B&B tribe members recently fixed this exact issue with her pricing. She removed her peak season monthly discount entirely and adjusted her weekly discount to just 5%. Her revenue jumped by over $2,000 the very next month, and she's actually getting more long-term bookings now than she ever was before. The key is to be strategic about when and how you offer these discounts. During peak season, you might offer no discount at all, or maybe just 5% for really long stays. During shoulder season, you might bump that up to 10 or 15%. And during low season, that's when you can offer those deeper discounts to attract longer stays when you really need them. Now, speaking of revenue, let's talk about mistake number 4, which is missing special event opportunities. This one is costing so many hosts thousands of dollars in lost revenue, and it's actually pretty easy to fix. Here's what usually happens. A big event comes to town, maybe it's a concert, a festival, or a major sporting event. Suddenly hotels are charging 3 or 4 times their normal rates. But you've got no idea the event is even happening until it's too late. The really frustrating part, your competition does know about it. They've already raised their rates and they're getting those premium bookings while you're stuck with your regular pricing. I learned this lesson the hard way when I first started hosting almost a decade ago. I had a property near a major venue and I couldn't figure out why some weekends would book up instantly at regular rates while others would sit empty even at a discount. Then I discovered that those instantly booked weekends were all during major events. People were basically stealing my property at regular rates when I could have easily been charging 3 times as much. But here's the thing, it's not just about knowing when the big events are happening. You also need to know about smaller events that can affect your specific area. Maybe that's a local festival, a college graduation, or even a big wedding at a nearby venue. So how do you fix this? Well, there are a few key things you need to do. First, you need to identify all the potential events that could affect your property. This means major events in your city, but also local events in your specific neighborhood. Then you need to track when those events are happening and adjust all your pricing accordingly. And you need to do this really well in advance because many guests book early, especially for major events. Now, the good news is you don't actually have to do all of this stuff manually. There are tools that can automatically track events in your area and adjust your pricing accordingly. Price Labs, for example, does an amazing job of this. It'll automatically detect events and adjust your rates based on the expected demand. But the real secret is knowing how much to adjust your rates for different types of events. You can't just triple your prices for every single event and expect to get bookings. You need to understand the impact of different types of events in your specific market. Price Labs does a really great job of this. For instance, a major concert might let you double your rates, while a local festival might only justify a 30% increase. The key is knowing the difference and pricing accordingly. Now, let's talk about mistake number 5, which is not using advanced pricing tools. This is probably the easiest mistake to fix, but I still see so many hosts trying to use their own manual pricing strategy. Here's what most hosts do. They log into Airbnb every few days, check their competitors' prices, maybe look at their calendar, and then manually adjust their rates. Some hosts even create massive spreadsheets to track all of this data. And I get it. I used to do the exact same thing. I would spend hours every single week adjusting my prices, trying to get them just right. And that's honestly a great way to learn the basics of pricing optimization. But here's the problem with that approach in the long term. First off, you're probably missing out on a ton of opportunities to adjust your rates. The market changes constantly, sometimes multiple times per day. Unless you're literally sitting there monitoring your rates 24/7, you're gonna miss chances to optimize your pricing. Second, you're likely making emotional decisions about your pricing. Maybe you're worried about vacancy, so you drop your rates too low. Or maybe you're feeling really confident, so you price way too high and end up sitting empty. But the biggest issue, you're spending all this time on something that could be completely automated. And I mean completely automated. You literally never have to think about it again, kind of automated. This is where tools like Price Labs really shine. Now, I know what some of you guys are thinking, but James, these tools are expensive. And yes, they do cost money. But let me show you the actual math here. Let's say you're charging an average of $200 per night. Price Labs costs about $20 per month per property. That means you need to make just $20 more per month to break even on the investment. That's literally one night where you charge just $20 more than you could have otherwise. But here's the reality. These tools typically increase your revenue by 15 to 20% or more. So on that same $200 per night property, that's an extra $900 to $1,200 per month. You're spending $20 to make an extra $1,000. That's what I call a no-brainer. One of our BNB tribe members actually documented his results after switching to Price Labs. In his first month, his revenue increased by 22%. And the best part, he completely stopped worrying about pricing. The tool handled everything automatically, which really highlights something that I've learned after years of hosting. It's not just about working harder, it's about having the right systems in place. And speaking of systems, I want to pause here for a moment because what I'm about to share is going to help you implement everything we're covering today way more easily. You see, all of these pricing strategies we're talking about, they're just the tip of the iceberg. Inside BNB Tribe, we've got complete templates and step-by-step training that show you exactly how to implement all of these strategies and more. We've got pricing calculators that help you dial in your exact rates for different seasons. We've got setup guides for tools like Price Labs that make implementation of this stuff super simple. And most importantly, you get direct access to a community of hosts who are actively using these strategies every single day and constantly refining them. I actually spoke with a member yesterday who followed our pricing optimization guide and increased her monthly revenue by over $700. And the best part, she did it in less than a week. If you want to check it out, there's a link in the description right down below. When you join, you're going to get instant access to our entire training library, including our advanced pricing strategies that we don't share anywhere else. You'll also get access to our weekly live calls where we dive deep into topics exactly like this and can even take a look at your specific listing and your specific pricing. Now, let's dive into 6 more pricing mistakes that could be costing you thousands. Starting with mistake number 6, which has to do with weekend pricing strategy. This one's actually pretty sneaky because most hosts think they're doing it right, but they're really not. Here's what most hosts do. They charge a flat weekend rate that's maybe 30 or 40% higher than their weekday rate. They set it up once and then they just leave it. But this approach is costing them a ton of money. Why? Because not all weekends are created equal. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say you've got a property that rents for $200 during the week and you bump it up to $300 on weekends. That might work fine during normal weekends, but what about holiday weekends? What about weekends when there's a major event in town? Or what about those random weekends in low season when nobody's traveling? See, most hosts are either leaving money on the table during high demand weekends, or they're pricing themselves out of the market during low demand weekends. And sometimes they're doing both at the same time. I'll give you a perfect example. One of our properties is near a local ski hill. During regular weekends, we charge about 50% more than our weekday rate. But on opening ski weekend, we can charge 3 times our weekday rate, and we still book up instantly. On the flip side, during our shoulder season, we actually keep our weekend rates pretty close to our weekday rates. Why? Because we noticed that when we tried to charge our usual weekend premium during slow season, those weekends would just sit empty. The key is to be strategic about your weekend pricing. You need to look at 3 main things when first setting your weekend rates. First, what season are you in? Second, are there any special events happening? And third, is it a holiday weekend? But here's where it gets really interesting. You can actually use your weekend pricing to influence your weekday bookings too. Let me explain. When your weekend rates are significantly higher than your weekday rates, guests start to see the value in booking during the week instead. I'm talking about people who have flexibility in their schedule. Maybe they're digital nomads or retirees, or just people who can work remotely. These guests look at your calendar and think, hey, I could save $200 by checking in on Monday instead of checking in on Friday. And just like that, you've got more weekday bookings at better rates. We actually discovered this by accident with one of our properties. We had a huge event in town that caused our weekend rates to triple. But instead of our weekday bookings dropping off like we expected, they actually increased. People were booking longer stays, checking in earlier in the week to lock in those lower rates. All right, now let's move on to mistake number 7, which is blindly following your competitors' pricing. This is probably one of the most dangerous mistakes that you can make as a host. Most hosts check their competitors' prices and they think to themselves, well, if they're charging $300 per night, I should probably charge right about the same. But there's a huge problem with this approach. You have no idea if your competitor actually knows what they're doing. For all you know, they could be making all the pricing mistakes that we're talking about in this video. Following their pricing is following someone who might be just as lost as you are. Now, I'm not saying that you should ignore your competition completely. You definitely need to know what's happening in your market, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. The right way is to use your competition as just one data point in your pricing strategy. You want to look at their base rates, sure, but you also need to look at their amenities, their location, their reviews, and their overall quality compared to your place. For example, if you've got a hot tub and they don't, you shouldn't be matching their price. You should be charging more. If they've got 300 5-star reviews and you're just starting out, you might need to charge a little bit less until you build up your reputation. PriceLabs is actually a really awesome tool for this, as it allows you to keep tabs on not just what your competitors are setting their prices at, but what rates they're actually getting booked for. But regardless of what tools you use, the key is to understand your property's unique value proposition. What makes your place so special? What do your best reviews talk about? These are the things that should drive your pricing decisions, not what the property down the street is charging. Now, this brings us to mistake number 8, which might be even more costly than following your competition blindly: having a poor seasonal pricing strategy. When I say poor, I mean most hosts are just flat out guessing when it comes to their seasonal adjustments. Here's what typically happens. A host knows that their summer season is busier than their winter season, so they drop their winter rates by 30 or 40%. Or maybe they're in a ski destination, so they double their rates during winter months. But here's the problem. Most markets have way more than just 2 seasons. And if you're only adjusting your prices for peak and off-peak, then you're leaving a lot of money on the table. Let me show you what I mean. So let's say that you're in a beach destination. You probably know to charge more during the summer and less during the winter. But what about those perfect weeks in early fall when the weather's still great, but the crowds are gone? Or those random warm weeks in the spring where people are desperate to hit the beach? I'll give you a real example. One of our properties is in a popular summer destination. When we first started hosting, we did what everyone else did: high rates in the summer, low rates in the winter. But then we started noticing something interesting. Certain weeks in what we thought were our off season were booking up instantly. Meanwhile, some weeks in our peak season were sitting empty up until the last minute. That's when we realized we needed to get a lot more specific with our seasonal pricing. Now, instead of just 2 seasons, we break our year into 4 different pricing periods. We have a peak summer, shoulder summer, winter premium, and winter shoulder. And within each of those periods, we adjust for special events, holidays, and local patterns. The result is that our revenue increased by over 30% in the first year after making this change. And the best part, our occupancy actually went up in what used to be our slowest season. But here's what most hosts get stuck with. They don't know how to identify these different seasonal patterns in their specific market. They don't know when exactly to transition their pricing or how much to adjust their rates for each period. The good news is there's a pretty simple way to figure this out. The first thing you need to do is look at your historical booking patterns. Pull up your calendar from the past year and look for patterns. When did your property book up quickly? When did it sit empty? When did you get your highest rates? But here's the trick. Don't just look at when people stayed at your property. Look at when they actually booked it. This is something most hosts completely miss, but it's absolutely crucial for proper seasonal pricing. For example, we noticed that our summer peak season, most bookings came in 3 to 4 months in advance. But for our fall season, people were booking just 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time. This completely changed how we approach our pricing for different seasons. During the summer, we could start with higher rates because we knew people were booking far in advance. If a week didn't book up, we had plenty of time to adjust our pricing. But for the fall, we need to be more strategic with our initial rates because we had a shorter window to get those bookings. Now, I know this might sound like a lot of work, and honestly, if you're doing it manually, it is. But this is exactly why we show our members in B&B Tribe how to automate all of this. We show you exactly how to set up your dynamic pricing tools for different seasons. We've got templates that you can use to just copy and paste for your specific market. Plus, we walk you through how to identify your specific seasonal patterns and create the perfect pricing strategy for your unique property. One of our members, Rajani, recently implemented this exact system for her property. She wanted to dial things in and automate her pricing strategy without leaving money on the table. After following our pricing blueprint inside B&B Tribe, she was able to increase her earnings while actually doing less work managing her pricing. If you want to check it out, just click the link right in the description down below. When you join, you'll get instant access to our complete pricing automation system, including our seasonal pricing calculator, our dynamic pricing setup guides, and our entire library of hosting resources. But even if you're not ready to join B&B Tribe just yet, just understanding these seasonal booking patterns will help you make better pricing decisions. The key is to look for patterns in when people book, not just when they stay. Speaking of booking patterns, this brings us perfectly to mistake number 9, which is all about early booking discounts. This one is especially interesting because almost every host offers early booking discounts, but almost everyone sets them up completely wrong. Here's what most hosts do. They set up a blanket discount for any booking that comes in more than 3 or 4 months in advance. Usually something like 10 or 15% off. They think, hey, I'll reward people for booking early. But there's a huge problem with this approach. You see, some guests are already planning to book well in advance. Think about wedding parties, family reunions, or holiday travelers. These guests often book 6 to 8 months ahead of time, and they're typically less price sensitive than other guests. But by offering an early booking discount, you're giving them a discount that they didn't even need. Let me show you a perfect example of this. We had a property that was getting a lot of event bookings. These guests were booking 5, sometimes 6 months in advance, and we had our standard early booking discount of 15% set up. One day, I decided to check how much money this discount was actually costing us. In just 3 months, we had given away over $4,000 in early booking discounts to event parties. And here's the crazy part. When we dug into our messages with these guests, not a single one of them had even mentioned the discount. They were booking early because they had to, not because we were offering a discount. So we tried something different. Instead of offering early booking discounts for our peak season and holiday dates, we only offered them during the shoulder and low season. And even then, we got more strategic about it. For example, during our low season, we might offer a 20% discount for bookings more than 4 months out. but during peak season, no early booking discount at all. Those dates are going to book up anyway, so why give away money for no reason? The results were incredible. Our revenue increased by over $3,000 per month in the high season without sacrificing anything during the low season. Now, on pretty much the exact opposite side of the coin, we have the mistake number 10, which is incorrect last-minute pricing adjustments. This is probably one of the most misunderstood aspects of Airbnb pricing that I see, and I see hosts making costly mistakes with this all the time. Here's what usually happens. A host sees that they have empty nights coming up and they immediately start dropping their prices. They think, well, something is better than nothing, right? So I gotta just drop my prices down. But this approach is completely wrong, and I'll tell you why. Not all last minute vacancies are created equal. Sometimes you should drop your rates at the last minute, but other times you should actually be increasing them. The key is knowing the difference. Let's say that you've got a large property that sleeps 12 guests and it's in a rural area. It's perfect for family reunions, corporate events, and big group getaways. Now, looking at the booking patterns for a property like this, you'll typically find that only about 5% of bookings come in during the last 14 days before check-in. Why? Because most people don't plan large group trips at the last minute. So if you've got a last minute availability for your property like this, then dropping your rates probably makes quite a bit of sense. Those last minute bookings are rare, and getting something is usually better than getting nothing. But now let's look at the complete opposite scenario. Let's say that you've got a 1-bedroom apartment right in the heart of downtown. It's perfect for business travelers, couples on weekend getaways, and spontaneous city breaks. For a property like this, you'll often see that over 50% of your bookings come in during the last 14 days. This completely changes how you should handle your last minute availability. If you know that half of your bookings typically come in at the last minute anyway, why would you drop your rates? In fact, you might even want to increase them, especially during high demand periods. So the key here is understanding your specific property type and your specific market. You need to look at your historical booking patterns again and understand exactly when people typically book your type of property. This will tell you whether you should be dropping your rates, holding firm, or even increasing them as the dates get closer. Now, last but certainly not least, we need to talk about mistake number 11. This is the biggest mistake that's costing hosts more money than any other pricing issue we've covered today. It's having the wrong cancellation policy. Most hosts set up a flexible or moderate cancellation policy because they think that it'll help them get more bookings. They worry that a strict policy will scare away potential guests. But here's the thing. This decision is probably cutting your revenue in half, and I can prove it. Let me show you what happens with a flexible cancellation policy. First off, you get a ton of speculative booking in a lot of cases. These are people who book your place just in case while they're still shopping around. Then, when they find something they like better or their plans change, they cancel. No harm to them, they get all their money back. But here's the real problem. Those canceled dates usually end up booking for a lower rate. Why? Because now you're closer to those dates, you've lost that opportunity to get early bookings, and you're now more likely to need to offer a discount to fill in that gap. I'll give you a perfect example. One of our B&B tribe members was using a flexible cancellation policy on his beach property. He was getting tons of bookings for his peak summer dates, booking up almost 6 months in advance. That sounds great, right? But then the cancellations started rolling in. About 40% of his bookings would cancel within that flexible window. And here's the worst part. Those prime summer weeks that had booked up for $1,000 a night, he ended up filling them last minute for just $700 or $800 a night instead. He was literally losing thousands of dollars every month because of his cancellation policy. Then he switched to a strict cancellation policy. Now, something really interesting happened here. His overall bookings dropped slightly at first. About 10% fewer bookings were coming in. And honestly, he started to panic a little bit. But then he noticed something incredible. The cancellation rate dropped from 40% to less than 2%. And because he wasn't dealing with all those cancellations, he was actually getting better guests who were willing to pay more money. Think about it. Guests who book with a strict cancellation policy are obviously way more committed. They're planning their proper trip. They're not just shopping around. They're exactly the kind of guests that you want at your listing. Even with slightly fewer bookings, he was making significantly more money because he was keeping those high value early bookings instead of having to discount them later on. Now, I know that some of you guys are thinking, but James, won't a strict cancellation policy scare away potential guests? And yes, it might scare away some guests, but here's the thing. It's scaring away the right ones. You're scaring away the tire kickers, the window shoppers, and the speculative bookers. You're only left then with serious guests who respect your business and are willing to commit to their travel plans. The results are going to speak for themselves. Now, after implementing this strategy, our B&B Tribe members consistently see revenue increases of 20 to 40%. And the best part, they deal with fewer headaches and higher quality guests. If you want to learn even more strategies like this, I've got something special for you. Inside B&B Tribe, we've got complete templates, pricing calculators, and step-by-step training that'll show you exactly how to implement everything we covered in this video. You'll get access to our advanced pricing strategies that we don't share anywhere else, plus you'll join an incredible community of hosts who are all focused on the same goal, optimizing their listing and maximizing their revenue. Now, the best part, you'll get over $4,000 worth of discounts on tools like Price Labs and other essential hosting softwares. These discounts alone are worth 100x almost of the cost of joining. So if you want to check it out, then just click the link in the description down below. Now, whether you decide to join B&B Tribe or not, I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope you identified some pricing opportunities in your Airbnb business. If you've gotten value from this video, make sure you hit that like button. It really helps to support the channel. And if you want to see more videos about Airbnb hosting strategies, optimizing your listings, and making more money on Airbnb, then hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Last but not least, don't forget to drop a comment below letting me know which of these pricing mistakes you're going to fix first. And if you made it through completely unscathed, let me know so I can get you your free month of B&B Tribe. I read every comment and I love hearing all about your hosting journeys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.